Today, many people want to improve their chess, but they don't understand that there is a kind of evolution in chess. And what do I mean by evolution? That in different chess historical period, different players had different understandings, okay? So we generally start with Philidor that says, hey, the soul of chess are the pawns. Why does he say that? I honestly didn't understand it for a long time, up to the moment I didn't understand that the pawn structure makes you able to create a strategic plan. Then of course you have players like Morphy. Morphy teaches you everything about time and development, no? So is also a step in the evolution of a player, in the chess improvement, okay? And so here you have this book by Gambit that is Improve Your Chess by Learning from the Champions, written by Lars Bo Hansen, which does the same, because practically the idea is at a certain point we reach Ninzovic in the 1930s, and of course today probably the top players don't always use Ninzovic because the computers have proven that some position work also against some principle. But for the average club player that will never become a grandmaster, unfortunately the reality is that he must know those principles, he must be able to apply them in his own games. So my goal here is to show you some games from this book, so maybe you will also like it and want to read from it. The first game I want to show you is Von Bruel against Philidor. It was played in London in 1783. So Philidor is black. The game is a little long, but I think it's worth it. Sometimes you have to have long games and understand how they work, okay? So it started with e4, e5, bishop c4, c6, okay? So as you can see already here, this move is something that tells you a story. What is the story? The story is that you want to control and fight for the center. And this is what's happening. He wants to do this, right? So how does his opponent prevent that? His opponent in that time thought that queen e2 was a good way. Why? Because if he plays d5, takes, and then this is gone, right? And so Philidor needs to defend d6. But this move, while open for this, close this, right? So maybe not so good. Maybe c6 wasn't so good. In fact, at a certain point, we will have a Philidor defense that is with d6 and not with c6. Okay, let's see how it continues. c3. And now there is f5. And again, here you can see something, right? Because Philidor was a musician, but he was also a professional chess player. And for professional, I don't joke about it, because you say, oh, it's the 1700. No, don't joke about this guy, because this guy was able to probably make simul blindfold against 10 people. So he wasn't a joke, he was a real chess player, okay? So if he played this, that obviously I don't like because it's a weakness, no, it creates a weakness. It's because he had an idea already that this pawn is less valuable than this pawn. So you see, because they tell you, the pawn is 1. No. The pawn, it depends where it is. If it is here and is nearly a promotion, it's nearly a 10, right? So it's not always 1. And in the center, here, it could be a 125. While this is that on the side, it's a 0.75. And this is that is here, maybe it's a 0.5. It's not a 1, because when you have this, often, also when you go to the promotion, you know that you're not going to win the game, because against a long king, a h-pawn or a pawn, they can be blocked, and so that's a problem, right? So as you can see, you also need to know your endgames in order to put all together. Okay, let's continue to watch the game. Obviously the guy doesn't want to exchange, so he probably also has an understanding of what's going on, and he plays d3, because if you take, he takes back, and he still has control of the center. So this von Bruel is not a bad player. Here, of course, there is a line given by our author Bo Hansen that says, what happens if you play this? I don't want to show you the line. Again, that you can buy the book. If you want to see everything, buy the book. I am more focused on understanding what's going on. Knight f6, as you can see, reiterates this fight for the center. And now it takes in f5. This I don't think is good, honestly. Why is not good? Because it's give black what he wanted. He wanted to develop, he wanted to control the center. Now he has 2 pawns in the center against 1. And boom, guess what? 1, 2 against 1. So already now black is slightly better, I would say. Slightly better. So what do you think it happens next? Obviously, our friend here attack the center, right? But, and this is why I put the position from the black side. You guys have a position from the one that will win, so you can start to think like a winner, right? What do you think now Philidor played? You should pause the video and try to guess. Obviously, Philidor didn't exchange the pawn because he can't exchange the pawn, but the point is that let's say he could, no? Would he really want to give white the central control? No, he doesn't, okay? So, obviously, he push. He push because he doesn't want to lose control of the center. For him, the center is important. Bishop g5 and d5, and this cement the control of the center with this big long chain, right? Yet now obviously white has some outposts here, okay? There is some kind of weakness. Okay, let's see how we continue. Bishop d3, bishop d6, knight d2, knight b d7, h3, h6, bishop e3, queen e7, and now there is an interesting move. White plays f4. This is interesting, but honestly I don't think it's a good move. Why do I say it's interesting? Because the guy wants maybe to have control of this, but he's not gonna have it. How does he go there? All the squares are controlled. I mean, all the squares are controlled by black, so he's not gonna go there. And so you need to ask yourself, what would you have played here? Here, Bo Hansen doesn't put the right move, but the point is, you generally would attack the pawn chain. I don't know why I didn't put the right move. I don't have an engine, so I'm not telling you 100% that what I'm saying is correct, okay? And also engine evaluations, believe me, they have changed, because the other day I was watching a game commented with and annotated with Stockfish 5, and I'm sorry, we are a Stockfish 16 or 17. Some things have changed, so what we thought was the wisdom, the best thing, the truth in 2012 with Stockfish 5, now we know that is not the truth anymore. So, why I would make this? Because I want to attack the pawn chain. Now the problem is that doing this creates a lot of weaknesses, so maybe it's not the correct move, but at a certain point you need to attack that pawn chain, okay? So, okay, he played f4, and let's see what is next. Okay, and now we have a move by Philidor that Bo Hansen considered dubious, but right. And it's h5. A move in the spirit of Ninsovic and blockade. Black prevents g4. We shall discuss this concept in much more detail in chapter 3. The only reason to criticize this otherwise excellent move is that in this particular position he says black should have played this. He takes f3, queen takes f3, and castle. Opening the game is even better and immediately present. White with serious problem. Presents white with serious problem. Okay. Philidor, like his pawn phalanxes, sometimes perhaps even too much. The problem that I would say here is the following. We are in 1783. You know that I don't know if they already knew about en passant, because it's possible that the rules before FIDE were not so written in stone. Just to make you an example, I don't know if in 1783 they already started with white. For example, in 1783 it's possible that whoever started first was the one who started first, so they didn't have a problem if it was black or white. Today we know that white is moving first, but in that time it's not said. And for sure in 1783, because we know it from a game in the late 1800, they didn't have rules about the draw. They could repeat maybe 6, 7, 10 times the same moves. Nobody would say anything up to the moment they don't change. So as you can see, I don't know if e takes f3 en passant was allowed in that time or not. Maybe it was, but who knows if in particular game in London it was a rule that was used, okay? c4, a6, c takes d5, c takes d5, queen f2, castle, knight e2, b5, castle, knight b6. Look how beautiful it's becoming, this situation, because obviously, as you can see, this is isolated, this is not so strong, this is a pass pawn, and is probably trying to create another phalanx of pawns, something that is going forward, okay? So that's kind of interesting to me. Knight g3 and g6, rook a c1, knight c4. Yeah, Here it says one more element of positional chess that was later to be adopted by Ninsovic, the outpost. So this is the outpost. Also this is an outpost, and this is an outpost for white, okay? Also this is an outpost for white. Obviously this outpost is better than this because if you take, it will create a pass pawn. So knight takes f5, g takes f5, again clearly black is having a mass of pawn that is coming, okay? So that's what you must notice. Queen g3, queen g7. He says this is not bad, but keeping the queens on with king h7 looks even better. Black has good play on the open g file. So, yeah, of course. In modern times we wouldn't simplify like this, but at this point it's possible that Philidor already knew that for him this was a kind of one endgame. We also don't know how many games Philidor played in his life, and games make a big difference. Okay, queen takes g7, king takes g7, bishop takes c4, and now, guys, I want you to think, pause the video and think, because this is one of the principles by, we could say, maybe it's Morphy's time, that has been violated, should be violated in this game to play correctly. Here Philidor played b takes c4, okay? And the principle is you take 2 with the center, because like I told you, 2 with the center is better. But in reality, it's possible that today everybody would play this move. Why? Because the queenside majority is believed to create a pass pawn and win the game. Okay, that's what I tell you, but let's see what Lars Bo Hansen writes, right? Let's see what he writes. He says, Philidor remains true to his central pawns, but a modern master would probably take with a d pawn here, obtaining a queenside pawn majority, a Stanitz tool, and a dominant blockading knight on d5 as described by Ninsovic. So the idea is this, and this wins the game, practically. In modern time, master level play, okay? Instead, Philidor time, 1700, he took like that. How did the game continue? g3, rook a b8, b3, bishop a3, taking control of c1, rook c2, c takes b3, a takes b3. Okay, so let's see, to make a little less confusion here. Okay. Okay, now maybe this was better, and that's kind of interesting, right? Why do you think this was better? Because then you can do this probably, and that's really a problem for black. Really interesting. Yeah, instead he played this. Yeah. Well, you must be careful sometimes, because once you have made a pawn move, you cannot take it back. And in a sense, this move is more active, because you see, he leads to greater piece activity compared to this move. So that's something you need to consider too, okay? Rook b c8, rook takes c8, rook takes c8, rook a1, because it cannot go here, bishop b4. This move appears logical, but the endgame that black is steering the game towards turn out not to be so advantageous as one might expect. Therefore, it seems more accurate to seek a minor piece ending by playing this. Rook c1. Okay? Okay. I don't know how Lars Bo Hansen consider this, because the problem is always the same, right? Philidor is in 1783. He doesn't have a computer. Generally, computers also today are not allowed in chess game, apart in correspondence game. But in a normal tournament game, if you use a computer, you are a cheater. So how Lars Bo Hansen says this is not so good while the other is better? Because the computer told him? Because that's the point. If the computer didn't tell him, how did he reach that? And how many times he would be able to win that endgame? This book was written in 2009, okay? So that's kind of important. So after bishop b4, rook takes a6, and boom, rook c3. Of course, you don't take this, you start to have a rook that becomes more active. Notice this. Generally they tell you the 7th rank, the 2nd rank are where you want to put your rook, but there is a reason. Because generally all the pawns are there. In this case, the pawns are on the 6th, so this makes much more sense, right? So that's something that you must consider when you think, right, about your moves. King f2, and once more, rook d3. He wants to take total control. Here he says a restricted advance on one file with the idea of giving up that file for another one. This is from Nimzowitsch. Rook a2, bishop takes d2, rook takes d2, and rook takes b3. So the position is still equal. Now, however, we have what? Try to understand this position for a second, because this is an endgame, right? Generally, the knight is not so good compared to a bishop, but here this bishop is just a pawn, because it doesn't have square, it's not doing nothing, right? So this knight is better than this bishop, okay? Okay, so we continue with rook c2, and now try to pause the video and think what you would play in this endgame, okay? Try to think what you would play in this endgame. Philidor played h4, a great move. Why a great move? Because, like I told you, the pawns on the h file are not so good, okay? If you remove everything from the chessboard and you have white with two pawns on the h file and the enemy king is here, it's a draw. So that's kind of the truth. Rook c7, king g6, g takes h4, and now knight h5. And this is kind of scary, because black is trying to enter for real. And here it's kind of interesting also to see what would happen if in the game this was played, but if he plays this. Well, it seems that if he plays that move, black goes here. Because he is going to use the king to approach that rook, to attack that rook. So that's kind of interesting, I think. Okay, so how did he continue? Rook d7. So if you were black, what would you play now? Try to pause the video and guess what would you play as black, because this is a very interesting point at this moment. Knight takes f4, great move. Bishop takes f4, okay. Rook f3, king g2, rook takes f4. As you can see, now we have an endgame that if we remove these rooks and just leave it like this, black is going to win, right? So what is the lesson here? The lesson here at this point is that from the middle game sometimes you need to start to project in which endgame you will go, because that will tell you if you're able to win or not. Rook f3. Obviously this is not a good move, this is better, okay? Rook d8, obviously needs to push the pass pawn. Rook d3, and this is very good for black, because generally your rook should stay behind the pawn and push it, okay? Okay, so d5, f4, d6, rook d2, king f1, king f7. Of course, he must prevent that rook from attacking this, okay? Or also this. Now, h5, e3, and now there is a mistake by white. It was probably better to play rook d7, instead he played h6. f3, it's threatening checkmate, okay, and here white resigned. Interesting. Okay, so at this point you could obviously try to play it against the computer to see how it ends, because I'm sure some people don't understand how it ends. For example, what should white do now? If you play this, obviously it's checkmate, okay? So obviously you need to move a king, but if you move a king, the other give you a check and the game is probably kind of over, right? Or it does something else. In any case, try to play the end position, because honestly it's the only way that you learn, especially in some endgames where master level know how to finish it and average club players doesn't, okay? But here it's clear. So I thank you for watching, and we will take up this book again later, because I think it's a real way to improve your chess, watching games that have been selected by a master level player to give you the road on which you should go in order to improve your chess. Thank you.